It's a meeting of the Dam Authority. Call to order. Pledge of allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're good, Allison?
Yes. Do you want me to do roll call or are you just all present?
Might as well do roll call.
Chairman Christensen,
Present.
Road Commissioner Greenan,
Here.
Commissioner Ross, here. Member Thompson,
Present.
Member Warner.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. Okay, it brings us down to approval of agenda, late additions or deletions. Okay.
I'll move to accept the agenda as presented with the August 16th special session minutes removed, correct?
That sounds like what Allison said, so, and it's got a line drawn through it.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have an agenda. Okay. Brings us down to public comment. So it looks like we have plenty of that. We've had a monumental rain event, plus carrying a little extra water in the lakes this season as per our decision of a year ago nearly. I guess what we'll do at this point is if you come forward and as you hit the table, if you could say your name and where you live, and that would give Allison a chance to record that, and then you can say your comments. The current county board policy is a 3-minute at the initial, and if you want to hang around and do 5 minutes at the end. So that's kind of a time limitation that you have. So if you could keep your comments to 3 minutes, that would be greatly appreciated. And unless I've missed something, I think we can move forward with public comment.
Good morning. My name is Nancy Popa. I live in Bingham Township on Lake Leelanau Drive, and I'm the president of the Lake Leelanau Lake Association. I am not here in that capacity today, but I am here to learn more about how the dam is operated, because you can imagine I received numerous emails and phone calls and concerns about the lake levels. So I wanted to introduce myself, and I know Kama and Rick know how to get a hold of me if you ever need to. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Chris Crow, resident of South Lake Leelanau, 820 South Lake Leelanau Drive. I had noticed on the South Lake this year, I've been a resident since 2016. This year, the lake levels on South Lake have been extremely high. Although we went through a drought in May, June, and July, the level stayed high on South Lake, not typical as in the past years. Both my neighbors have been there for a lifetime, and myself had noticed erosion along the shores. I couldn't figure out what was going on because of the drought, why the levels were still remaining so high. So I wrote a letter in July 28th to my commissioner. I didn't know any other way to go after looking and seeing there was a new dam assembled. Maybe the operation of the dam board had something to do with it. So I wrote this to my commissioner. Been a resident of South Lake Leelanau, District 3. I'm writing this communication to make you aware and bring resolution to the excessively high lake levels this year on South Lake Leelanau. I understand the court mandated levels and the restructuring of the Leland Dam Authority. Whomever is directly responsible this year is really failing us residents on South Lake Leelanau shores. Eroding, among other flooding issues. I've been a resident of South Lake Leelanau since 2016. The flooding, overflowing shores of South Lake Leelanau is unacceptable. Please read this complaint at the next board meeting for discussion and resolution. Also, please do everything in your power to return operation of the dam and lake levels to the historic operation, whereas the dam was operated at a lower level during the summer, lowering South Lake Leelanau, yet flowing water stayed within the corridor levels on North Lake. Whatever change in the operation of the dam from the past several years to this year is flawed. Need to get back to the historic operation, not the flawed operation of this year's dam. My commissioner wrote me back stating that they had several complaints about the lake levels, and he would forward it to the fellow commissioners. It'd be helpful if you and your neighbors got involved and bring this up to their commissioners as well, and attend meetings if possible. More input, more likely fellow commissioners will listen. So some points I wanted to make. The shoreline is washed away on my property and the properties around me. Puddling my lawn 3 inches before the shoreline and dock. Corridor levels of 589.2 has been violated this year, as South Lake has been held at 5.89.6, 5.89.8, 4 inches higher than historic summer levels. Normal historic levels typical at 2 inches above. The sensors on South Lake are correct. It should be alarming to all residents this portion of the lake has been held at such a high level. Due to heavy rains in the summers, 5 inches, 6 inches of rain, they're typical. The dam has always been lowered during these rainfalls to quickly lower the South Lake within a couple of days. This year, an 8-inch rainfall occurred, and the dam was not lowered until hours after flooding occurred. The dam was raised up on 9/11, even though South Lake was at the 590 level, 8 inches above corridor levels. Our properties are still flooded, yet the dam was raised. Corridor is a level of 589.2, as we all know, has been severely violated for all the hundreds of properties on South Lake. The request is respectfully to maintain the historic South Lake levels during the summer back to the 589.2 to 589.4. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, my name is Dawn Lund. I live at 2458 North Manitou Trail and also have property on South Lake Leelanau Drive. I wanted to point out that obviously we had a 200 to 500 year event, rain event, which affected the lake levels. If you actually look at, which is publicly available, the sensors on the Lake Leelanau website and really look at the data for the reason, it was the event was brilliantly executed. At the time that the rain fell, and you can see the South and Narrows raise, you can see that there was adjustment in the dam, and the water levels started to come down. You do see an adjustment after that when the Lake Leelanau River became critically low and would be a navigational hazard. An adjustment is made back up into the court-ordered range. Previously, for years, the court order has not been followed. The court order specifically reads as measured at the dam in Leland River. So the measurements that are being talked about today and previously have not been followed for years. So what happens is when the court order is followed and people were used to that lower level, that was probably shocking to some people. And then of course when you have a 200 to 5 year event, nature throws that at you. It appears to me, when you look at the sensors with logic and reason that are on public data available on the Leelanau website, it looks like it was brilliantly executed for what was thrown at the dam authority and the operator. So I thank you for how this event was handled. Again, it was a very rare event, and I think you guys did the best that you could do, and the operator did the best that they could do. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Bruce Leland. I've been on South Lake Leelanau since, well, my family's been there since
Ian, come on.
'36. And I'm going to withhold my comments until after I hear what you folks have to say.
Could you come up and, Allison, were you able to get the name of the last gentleman?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
I'm Leonard McNeil. So when we opened, you said, you mentioned about the decision that you made a year ago, but you didn't say what the decision was. So what was the decision that the board made a year ago?
We'll be getting into all of
The
that.
level of the dam.
We'll be
What
able
was
to
the
get into,
decision?
we'll be able to get into all of that. This isn't discussion. This is just to hear what you have to say. We'll be getting into that.
What was the decision that the board made a year ago? That's what I'm asking.
We'll get into that in the agenda.
Didn't answer my question.
I know, the question's recorded though, and we'll get to it.
Okay.
We can't do it in this time frame. Sorry. Anyone else? Seeing none, move on to action items. I did reach out to Sean Middleton from Spicer with regard to evaluating the structural integrity of the walkway at the dam. I'm not sure if I forwarded this to everybody or not. Did I or not? Probably not. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was going to be printed, but it didn't get printed. I apologize, but I'll read through what it said. This is from Sean. I reviewed Sean and, no it isn't, it's from Rich, I'm sorry. I reviewed Sean and Charles's last inspection report they did to you, and this is, the triannual inspection was done by Spicer. They have all our plans, and they have done the last two, so they are, they have all the information that we have with respect to the dam and the dam plans and the structure. And it had some photos of the walkway. The main structural beams look to be in really good shape, and they are galvanized. I also reviewed the plans, and they do show the details of this walkway. Below is an estimate to complete the analysis and an inspection if needed. The analysis. We have what we need to complete the structural analysis of the structure to determine its capacity. The plans do not show what the original design loading were, but we would be able to compare it to the current governing codes. The plans do show the details, beam sizes, lengths, etc. We would estimate a cost for this work to be $1,250. Field investigation. If we decide that that is needed also, I don't know if this would be necessary at this time because of unless he felt, and the insurance person, unless he felt there was issues with the structure other than the deck boards. This would be something we could focus on at the next dam inspection. However, if you still want the field review done, I would recommend a limited inspection. Use the GoPro to check underneath and bearing areas. If we found something that needed a boat, we could deal with that later. Doing a brief inspection is obviously driven by the travel time, but the estimated fee to do that would be around $1,600. And that was please let us know your comments. So that was my reach out to see what we'd be getting into with regard to monies spent to do an evaluation that related back to the risk management report that we got. And I guess I'd open it up for comments or thoughts.
Did they give us a specific amount of time that's required to complete the inspection and repair?
Not repair at all. They have everything they need. They did not give a time frame per se, but being that they've already gone as far as they've gone to see that they've got everything they need to do the initial analysis, I would imagine it would not take long. But that's an assumption on my part.
So we need to do the inspection before we obviously carry out any maintenance on it, correct? That's what you're saying?
Yeah,
So-
we would need the analysis at the very least.
So do we need a motion to?
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
It looks like there's two pieces to this, if I understand this
Yeah.
correctly. The first part is analysis of the plans for the walkway, a structural analysis to see if it meets code. And the second one would be a field inspection if there was some indication that what we have there may not meet code. Is that?
It doesn't have anything to do with code. It's just structure. In the first analysis, does this structure hold X amount of weight? Period. It gives us the parameters of what it's built to hold. And that's the first analysis. And risk management wanted to know how much does it hold. I don't recall anything in risk management saying that I observed da-da-da-da that makes this questionable as far as structure goes. They do a triannual report and they look closely at all the structure. So they looked at this structure 2 years ago, did not alert us to any physical problem with the structure of the walkway. In my mind, they've looked at it and we can specifically have them look really closely the next go, or we could have them come and do a specific look at the structure to see if there's something that they think might be needed to be addressed. It would be, in my mind, redundant, but we
Yeah.
could do that for an extra $1,600.
But the next triennial inspection's, what, 1 year away?
2025.
2 years away? And we could do the inspections at that time.
Oh, definitely, and Spicer's recommended that we do underwater again at that point in time.
But we still want to do the maintenance on, we want to do the
Oh,
maintenance.
definitely, I
Okay,
think
so
that's in
you're
our
saying
lap.
So we
need to do
don't
that.
need these reports in order
We
to go
don't need the
forward?
inspection, I don't think, but we do have to do the analysis.
Okay, that's
To
good.
satisfy risk management.
Okay,
So we have to do number one for sure. I'm under the opinion that the field inspection would be redundant. They've already
okay.
been here, we're talking galvanized steel. So I can't imagine, there'd be a need for that second,
And we have
unless
money in
I'm
the,
missing something.
and we have money in the budget to cover that analysis?
We have money available.
Okay.
It's carried through, and if there's a technical term, but it's available.
So I'm ready to make a motion if that's, yeah. So I move,
Go ahead.
I move that the Leland Dam Authority authorize
Spicer Group.
Spicer Group analysis of the bridge at the dam for a fee of $1,250. Is that sufficient?
What it says is we would estimate a cost. I
At the
think
estimated cost then.
maybe you can put in not to exceed, I think in my mind, I'd say not to exceed 1,500. That would give, they're doing an estimate.
Okay.
and it's not a bid.
And that's enough.
So that, I think if we say that, that probably gets us into safe territory, but we wouldn't have to come back and approve a
Okay.
bill that's over.
Okay, estimated to be no greater than $1,500. Thank you.
I second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. I'll move forward with that. I'll be working with Deb and go through that channel to make sure that the approval is something that we can do with department head approval, which I believe it is. So I just want to touch that base as we move forward. Okay. All right. Obviously, the item A, request for proposals, the RFP for development, is premature until we get that back. So A, we touched on that, but I just wanted to make sure that the record shows that we can't approach that until we get that analysis back. Oops. Item 2, meeting minutes. And we just got these, so I'll give you a chance. It's June 21 regular and June 21 executive session.
I move to approve the June 22nd regular meeting minutes.
I'll second that.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? And Lenny, to get back to your question, agreed by consensus to have come and bring the level back to 9.2. I was just
Do we
going
need
to
to-
read from the minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, on page 3.
And continue to watch the weather, notifying Christensen if phone calls begin coming in. So, 589.21 is the court ordered level. We've been carrying at the 2 level, just right there, maybe a fuzz less at the dam, to have the court order being satisfied, and also realizing that the staff gauge at the Narrows was set 2 inches too low. Whether the abutment settled or whatever happened, Army Corps of Engineers set both of those, and they're supposed to be exactly the same. And through survey work done by the authority, we saw that that was actually lower than it should be. So that's a check. It's not the measure. We measure at the dam, and the check at the Narrows is a quick and easy way for the dam operator to take an eyeball check and see, how does that look? Well, with the check being low, the reality of the situation was that we were often on the low side or a bit under the low side. The judge gave us 2 inches to work with, and the staff gauge is in tenths, not inches, which is a little bit confusing, but not bad. So you've got 2 inches to work with. That's the court order. And this is 2 inches down. So we decided that we'd been low and we need to be in that court order at the dam. So we had a restriction for the dam operator to be in that level and to be up toward the upper level of it to carry more water in the system and definitely be in the court-ordered level. So that's the long and the short of it, and that survey work was over the last year and a half. And that's where we are, and that discussion will be coming up later in the agenda as to, how do we feel about that and where does that go? So that's a good question and I appreciate it. I'm sorry we couldn't address it when you asked it, but I hope that answers you. Okay. And I just wanted to say that out of the minutes. I don't know if there's anything else that we need to say out of the minutes or not. But I wanted to address Lenny's comment. Okay,
And
we have another set of minutes.
I move to accept the executive committee meeting minutes from Wednesday, June 21st, 2023.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. All right. Dam adjustment procedures. We did meet, it was Cam and myself and Deb, and started the procedure of looking at dam adjustment procedures. And we got a ways along. There's Antrim has a couple of dams, and they have a dam operator who is a county employee. And I believe she's also the drain commissioner, which they've separated the dam operator position out of the responsibilities of the drain commissioner, and that's a county position. And I got her phone number and her email address, and I'll be getting in touch with her and to see what procedural methodologies they have on paper that we could adopt or modify for our situation. Quite obviously, as we got into this, there are some bits and pieces. How granular will the manual, if you will, procedures manual or procedures book be? Was an item that we discussed, and having input from Antrim will help. Obviously, we get big rain events, we have to dump water. And then at a certain point, we dial it back up. And in our current situation, when we brought it back up, dam operator was compelled to come back up to 9.2, where we had directed him basically to be in the court order and be at the levels that we agreed on as an authority. So he felt compelled to come back into court order and get some water in the river. It was, I think it was probably a good 5 or 6 days done, where it was really, I mean, he was dumping full bore and the river was really low. I don't know if Jerry got any calls from the marina just upstream, which has a hard time moving boats around when it's that low also. So there are those considerations, but he did dump, and everybody understood that he's going to have to dump a bunch of water, so he kept it wide open for those 5 or 6 days or 7 days, and then felt compelled to get water back in the river for everybody's best interest. And the lake levels are down. We're down to, and there are still like 3 extra inches in the south end compared to where it was going into this event. And the narrows were a good 1.25 inches extra at this point. So, it's coming down, and if you go onto the site, you can see that it's still, even with the dam up, the trends are down. We are dumping water. Water is coming out of the system. We're at day 7, so by day 10, I expect the narrows to be there. Ideally, the South Lake will too. We have gotten some more rain since the event, which is slowing down the dump. Whether or not we have to dump any extra water might be something that we get into here later in the meeting. So anyway, long story short, we got to start on the procedures. I guess I'd recommend appointing a committee to meet and hammer out more of those so we can get closer to having something on paper. We're going through transition. We have a second person that is being trained by the dam operator. So Jerry is keeping Dwayne with him. He was there during all the big adjustments in the last big dump. So we're in transition, we're in succession, and we got to get this on paper, and we're started at it. And
Do we have another date to follow up on where we started, where we're at?
well, we need a committee, and then we need to set a meeting date.
So do we need a formal committee or just the?
I can appoint a committee if it's my understanding. I think I can do that. I'd appoint Garth and Deb, Jerry, and myself to get a good start and get this on paper so we can move forward and be able to manipulate the dam according to court order and according to history.
So do you need a motion for that, or?
Good question. Allison, do you have an answer?
You certainly can make a motion for it.
I'd accept a motion that would appoint me to appoint a committee.
Or can we just appoint the committee through? Yeah.
That'd be fine too.
Okay, so I'd like to move that the Leland Dam Authority appoint Garth Greenan, Steve Christensen, and Administrator Allen, is that correct? On a 3-member, and Derry Coleman, I'm sorry, the operator of the dam, on a 3-member committee to formulate official procedures and policies for adjustments to the dam going forward. And I would encourage that to have a meeting set and a date plan to accomplish. So
ASAP.
ASAP. It's kind of a long motion, sorry, I don't know if anyone wants
Did
to.
did you get it, Allison?
Thank you.
You good? Okay, we have a motion.
Second?
We have support. Discussion.
I would be happy to join if ever needed or wanted. So I feel very passionately about this happening quickly, and if I can expedite that or provide any assistance, I'm there for you.
Maybe, Garth, if we have a meeting and you can't make it, you could tap the camera.
Okay.
If we did 3, we'd have a quorum, and that
That's
would be
true.
a little
Okay.
different
Okay. Yeah.
posting. We will be posting most probably anyway, but
Yeah.
it would make a formal meeting out of it. So
But if I can review anything or help move things along, so just know I'm there with you.
appreciate that.
Mhm.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, we have a committee on dam adjustment procedures. Any other discussion on that topic?
Good luck.
Okey doke. All right, brings us down to Leelanau Lake levels. I thought this would be a good topic. Give us a chance to kind of hash out where we are. We've gone through a process to get most definitely up into court-ordered levels, realizing that we were on the low side of the court order and possibly even a little lower than that historically. So open it up for comments or discussion.
Well, I'll comment that, I don't think we have the ability to arbitrarily set elevations different than what the court order is in terms of, normal operations. Of course, during an exceptional event like we just had, there's going to be some flexibility, in those elevations. The elevation at the dam was significantly below the court order. but that was necessitated by a very unusual event. And I don't think that the court order is such that it would prevent us from accommodating those unusual events.
Yeah, dumping, how do you do it and how much do you do and how long do you do? Those are all things that we'll be trying to sort of get to paper as best we can. And here, if you look at the record, when the dump happened, a lot of water was going over and the dam was actually being opened by the automatic function, and the level at the dam was staying close to 9.2. So, but the dam was open significantly, so a lot of water was flowing, even though it was set on automatic to keep the level at the dam at that level. We know through history, and the dam operator, Jerry, knows through history that what we have to do at that point in time is go to manual and open the dam up to release the maximum amount of water that you can during that time frame and under those situations, realizing that it's going to starve the river, but realizing too that we have a lot of water in the lake. The lake is very much higher than what the court order put down. So that's why it got opened as high as much as it did. So Jerry strung that out as many days as he felt was at all possible, realizing that he was stressing the system in the river. And at a certain point in time, he brought it back up. Now, before our direction for him to be at this level at the dam always, basically, he might not have brought it all the way up. He might have brought it up to a point where the river would be satisfied with plenty of water to navigate and still dump a fair amount of water. So that was a decision that he had to make, and being that we made the directive that we made, that's where he went with that, and that was by our direction. So the whole topic of dumping, how much to dump, and do we still need to dump water? We still need to shed water, and we're shedding it at a pretty good rate right now, but do we need to do something different? And that's kind of why I put this here, for us to discuss, I guess.
And I think when we develop our dam adjustment procedures, we can address unusual events, either unusually high rainfalls like we just had, or unusually dry periods that we had earlier this year. And then, of course, normal operations as well.
George, could you please talk next?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think in our dam adjustment development, we can address unusually high rainfalls like we just had, and also unusually dry periods that we had earlier this year, in addition to what our normal operations is. That'll give some guidelines for people that are, whoever is operating the dam at the time in the future, to be able to adjust and accommodate within reason what we're able to do with the dam adjustments and lake levels.
I guess in my mind, just throwing out a topic that we could chat about for a second, we're at the upper edge of court order right now. What if we went to the lower edge of the court order right now and make sure that Jerry stays in touch with, say, Dawn or someone on the river and with the marina to make sure that they had enough water to navigate and do what they want and need to do, and that would still have us in the court order, but we'd be dumping quite a bit more water until we get, especially the south end, down to where it was pre-event. That was just a thought. I don't know, I just thought I'd throw that out there. It'd be a little bit against where we were about carrying the extra water, but we've got extra water in our lakes. And I'm just suggesting that that would keep us in the court order, but we'd still be able to dump some water.
According to the graph right now, it looks like you are dumping a little more, right, Jerry? I mean, or is that on automatic right now?
That put back automatic.
Okay, so
They brought it back to,
we're right in the middle.
dam, water's out, escape from the lake,
Yeah,
we'll do that, and at 93, the bridge is going to, high gauge, so you have, it's coming down just under 93 this morning, so you have when it picks up, it's going to change that, it's going to the south. I want to see what's going to happen, I may have to let more water. If you want to go below, you have to let more water. Right now, we're legal court order, where you read it, where you bump it. Discrepancy, but that's what the court's working. So we're at 92 at the dam, 93 on the bridge of Leelanau, and the Cedars higher. But, that's kind of where I'm at right now. So we're all legal in regards to.
Right. And that's Jerry's take. He's holding our feet to the fire as to what we said before. If we are giving a directive, Jerry, of course, would follow directive. I just threw that out. And I know there's a little variance in the chart at this point in time, and that's, and I don't understand that. And we'll be getting to the update on the sensors.
Okay.
So I don't understand that. So I'm just looking at Cammie has the sensors pulled up on her iPad. But anyway, that being what it is and what was said, let's go back to my comment, and I would entertain comments or ideas from.
Yeah, Steve, I think what you're saying makes sense, because if you're still within the court order, but you're allowing south to get down a little bit to where it was before the large rain event, and then after a few days, put it back up, you're still within the legal limit, and we're all still adhering to the court order, but it's getting some relief for these folks that are having super high water in their lawns and on their shorelines.
Is there any reason not to go to the lower edge of the court order limit?
right now, yeah.
Not that I know of.
Okay.
I mean, we're in a situation where we need to dump water. It's just a matter of Jerry keeping in touch with the river people and the marina people to make sure that they can
Navigate.
handle what he's doing. And that, we're in a situation where we've got extra water, and we have the ability to remove extra water from our system because we have this dam. And it's kind of my idea that if we don't use the dam to dump the extra water, we're not doing it right.
Totally.
And at least that's my thought. Jerry, if you can, I'm going to have you come up because we can't hear. Jerry Coleman's our dam operator. He's been doing it for, I'm going to say 40 years, that give or take.
Yes, my name is Jerry Coleman. I just wanted to comment on the 200-year event. I was probably in diapers at that time, but the bottom line is September 1st of 2000, we had the rain event, the last one, major rain event compared to this one. We had 7 to 8 inches dropped from 4:45 in the afternoon to 11 o'clock at night. And we got, like I said, 7 inches or better that fell. And I couldn't get down to pull boards. My wife and I went down at 11 o'clock at night. She's holding the flashlight, I'm pulling boards. But I'm saying the rain event, that was the last rain event that we had of 7+ inches when, 2000, the year 2000, September 1st, 2000, the afternoon. And that was within 4 hours time, that's how much rain dropped. Just so you're aware, so this 200-year event and all that stuff, well, we just had it 23 years ago. And I just wanted to make a comment to clarify that we ran the same issue, except now I'm able to
let water more safely than walking out on the I-beam, 2 feet away from your phone. Too much. But anyway, it was great. But just wanted to make a comment of that, and this weekend we have plenty of water I can let. We can drop down to 9 if you want, 9 or 9.1, 589 points. And so, like I said, this afternoon, I'll check, or tomorrow morning early, about 6 o'clock, I'll get down and check and see where we're at on the level. And indicate, as the weather changes here, which is supposed to. So if there's any questions on that, but.
Well, thanks, Jerry. I'm glad for the comments. Yeah, we've talked about these 100-year events, and we're getting them every other year. So, I mean, it's
Just so you're aware, that's the last time we had this kind of water.
yeah,
Right
it's,
here.
Johnny Van, Royalty right at the dam, called me up, said, I got water in my basement. I mean, you're talking some serious water. It's starting to come in, so. But I couldn't get down there till 11, but, that night.
yeah, that was,
Light poles a little bit.
yeah, that was pre-new dam. That was the old dam.
Yes, sir.
Jerry didn't want to hold his portable lightning rod while the lightning was flashing. So, yeah, I had a lot of respect for what Jerry had to go through. Once seeing where he had to be to pull those boards, it was standing above a raging flood, and it took muscle and courage. But it's a much better situation now, I'm happy to say. And when's our next meeting? Allison, do we have that?
You know what, Steve, I didn't bring the schedule.
I can look it up.
Emma's gonna grab it. I'm just thinking, the lake level discussion is probably something that we'll want to continue sooner rather than later. I don't know if we'll get an extra meeting in, or I don't know, when is that next one?
Meetings. Actually, we don't have one on the calendar.
It's not on that calendar, it's not on that calendar, but I think
It's on
Allison,
the agenda, or on the meeting notice.
Yeah, December, I know.
December 13th is the,
December.
Okay, thank you.
November, December.
so I guess we have a thought that's going through and we're talking about, and I just interjected another thought, sorry about that. How much ground do we want to cover with the Leelanau lake levels? Can we decide what to dump or not right now, and then save the rest of our discussion or more discussion on lake level until that?
one more
meeting,
question.
or-
November 15th, when we drop the lake level down by a foot, what is the procedure? Do we start before the 15th? Do we start after the 15th? Obviously, the lake doesn't come down 12 inches in one day. Can you give us an idea of how that procedure takes place time-wise?
Well, Jerry, if I can interject real quick, there again, by deciding what we decided and holding very close to court order, that whole discussion is a really good one that we'll have during our procedure. Historically, I would say if there's no ice to think about for damaging lakeshore, Jerry would start to creep maybe 10 days ahead, just start creeping up just a fuzz, knowing that you're not going to add a foot of water in a day, which is what the judge says. Judge says on the 15th. Well, if we can start creeping a little bit, if there's no ice to worry about, then by the time the 15th rises and Jerry can pull it up, we get that summer level in a pretty short order this year. Jerry was conscious of what we're dealing with here, and he was thinking, well, I can't really bring very much up at all because I have to be by the court order, and the judge says we do it in a day. So he was hesitant to bring extra water in, which he may have done historically, but this year he started very close to the date when it was supposed to be there, and it took about 2 weeks to get to summer level. Well, people are ready for summer level. I mean, their boats go in the water, They start fishing, they start water skiing, they start all this stuff. They want to start soon if it's a nice warm spring. So we ran into that this year. So that's a great question. Same thing on the fall, what do we do on the fall? It's a little more leeway getting down a little after because we don't have ice to worry about. So anyway, Jerry, I took your thunder, but it's yeah, it's something that the dam operator has a feel for, and getting to summer level is important, maybe more important than getting to fall level. And again, the judge says it happens in a day, and the dam operator has to make it happen as close to that as what's feasible and fits with everybody around. I don't know. I rambled on that. Did that answer that one?
Yes.
So should we just deal with what we tell Jerry to do now with dumping and then talk about overall lake levels on December 13th?
Should talk about it every time, yes. Yeah,
Well, let's do the first one first.
I think so.
What should we tell Jerry with respect to right now on dumping water? Where should he have that?
Take it down to the low end of the legal range.
Yeah.
That would be my suggestion. 590.3. I'll work with you, Jerry. The judge made tenths it's in tenths and then the judge said inches. So, but we'll get it there. I'll help. We'll do it if that's the decision. Any other comment on that?
I think as long as we're within the court ordered levels, we're fine adjusting it to sort of suit what we predict the weather's going to be in the existing conditions. South Lake's high. I think we can drop the level of the dam down towards the lower end of the legal limit. And we're still in compliance with the court order, and we're helping solve some of the issues with the high South Lake level.
And then the other side of the coin is give Jerry the leeway to make sure he talks with the people on the river, and then bring it back to our previous level when he sees fit.
Yeah, I think as long as we're within the level that we have 2 inches of water elevation at the dam we can work with and still be in compliance, and we ought to use that 2 inches to our best ability to solve issues on the lake and the river.
But this just accentuates why we need these policies, procedures in place. Yeah, I mean, this should be all written someplace as fairly specific as we can be. So as
Definitely.
change happens in staffing, we are set to go. And yeah,
I agree.
the next big rain event, which obviously Jerry says is going to happen in our lifetime yet, we're really equipped to handle it best for all residents. So, we were in the building when that event was happening, actually talking about dam levels as the rain started. And to be honest, I think, it definitely highlighted for me as a commissioner the need for that policy and procedure. I felt very unsecure, and I was running upstairs, downstairs, trying to find people in the maintenance department, and Steve, and he was out in the field getting drenched at the time. So it's so much going on. We need that policy. We need to really work on that hard and get it in place so we can say to the public, that dam is following the court order to the best of our ability and without any doubt in any of our minds.
So I'd entertain a motion, I guess. Put that in a motion. Do we think we need that in a motion? No, just a directive.
I think just a directive, probably.
Okay.
Because we're not changing, the overall directive we had before was to stay within the court order. We're not changing that.
That's true. We're just, yeah.
Okay. The directive is, Jerry, to bring it to the low end of the court order to get some extra water out of the south end and make sure that the river people and the marina are kept in the loop, And at a certain point in time, when we're down to where we need to be, we can go back. Sound good?
Yep.
Do we need to go further and talk about where we're going to keep the dam lake level adjustment? Do we feel comfortable carrying it at the high end on into the future?
Yep.
I think a midpoint makes sense, but again, that might be something for the procedural conversation.
Yeah.
And also weather dependent. I think it has to have some room to fluctuate. If it's in a drought, it needs to be at the higher end. If it's a period of heavy rain, it needs to be closer to the lower end like right now. So it's got to be situation dependent.
Yeah, the judge put in the court order, just to eliminate any confusion, 589.21 minus 2. So there's a 2-inch level that the judge put in the court order. And the reason he put a 2-inch buffer in there is so the dam operator could run the dam at the 2-inch down. And the reason you'd want it at the 2-inch down is to allow the lakes to capture a rain event, a significant amount of water before we went up over the court order, and that would allow the dam operator a little more ability of time to get the water out of the system. That's why the judge did that. And I guess I would be in favor of the midpoint as an interim period at this point. I don't know, we're carrying it at the high end, at the high end, that's basically 2 inches more than the judge allowed us. And we've got all the folks here today, we're all looking at a little extra water. And we definitely don't want to starve the river, and we don't want to starve the marina. Anyway, that was just a comment. And then if we can broach that after procedures on December 13th and all, but I just wanted to explain why the 2 inches is there, and just for the benefit of the authority.
So Rick, you still said you like it at the top though? Is that what, or you were nodding your head? No.
I guess the thought is you can't add water back to the lake, or I'm sorry, you can't bring water back up. If you're at the low end of the range and there's a weather event with more water, you have some cushion to play with it. If you're at the top and you get a rain event, you know you're going to go over because you can't get the water over the dam from South Lake, from the Narrows, from North Lake, through the river instantaneously. So being near the low end gives Jerry flexibility to move more water if he needs it. He can close the dam nearly closed if there's a drought, and that happened in the spring this year. So being closer to the low end, I think, gives him flexibility to manage it. If we're at the high end, that's a problem. If we know at a rain event, we violate the court order. So I would propose going towards the low end.
I guess I'm thinking we're going into fall, we're going into our more rainy, chance of rain, so I would feel more comfortable just having him stick as close to the mid-range after he gets some of this water out of the south end. But yeah, middle of the road person I am. Yeah, not losing all that flexibility that you're talking about by going to the high end, but yeah.
I kind of like that thought. I know the lake's being watched, the river's being watched, and we're struggling with where to have it and how to do it. And I think it's all good that we're revisiting all of this. I feel real comfortable being in the middle of the road also. And once Jerry gets the water dump that we need dumped, if he could bring it to the midpoint of the court order, that would give us a look at what midpoint looked like for a stretch of time. We're getting relatively close to the winter level, but that would give us a little piece of time to take a peek at it. I feel real good about that idea myself.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it staying in the mid-level. I mean, it keeps us in compliance with the court order and it gives Jerry some flexibility.
So are we in consensus with a try at mid-level once the water's dumped to see how that looks?
Yes.
Is
Let's
that
go.
consensus? We don't need a motion on that either then? Okay. All righty. So we're going to the low end to get the water out, and once the water is out, to the best of the judgment of the dam operator, we go to mid-level. And we're keeping the river people and the marina people in the loop, and we're going to get some water out of the system. Any other comment on that? We covered a lot of territory, but I think it was necessary. And okay. Any other comment on that topic? And this was for Allison. Thanks, Allison. So it brings us to the update on sensor calibrations. And Rick's been working with Cal Killen and with John Popa, kind of the boots on the ground with regard to the sensors in the lake, where they are they calibrated, and all of the above. So go ahead, Rick.
To keep this relatively brief, we have had surveys done at the dam, at the Narrows, and at South Lake, and we have established a staff gauge to measure the water level at each of those locations based on the professional surveys. And on September 1st, Jerry Coleman, John Popa, and I met at the dam to take a look at the accuracy of the gauges, to correlate the electronic gauges. Many of us look at these readouts on the gauges, and the question is, are they accurate? Do they reflect the actual level of the lake, level of the water at each of those locations? It's an important question because a lot of people look at it and worry about it. So we took a look at the dam, and the staff gauge reading, this was at 9:30 in the morning on September 1st. Weather conditions were calm, there was no rain. This was before the rain event. Very light winds, if any. The staff gauge at the dam read 589.24. The bubble gauge in the control room where Jerry works was 589.24. As close as we could read those two, they were correlated precisely. The sensor gauge read 589.1218, which is 0.12 of a foot or 1.43 inches lower. So the electronic gauge, we believe, based on that one day, was reading lower than the actual water level. Cal Killen was on the phone with us as we did all these measurements, made the comparison. He believes at some point we need to adjust that electronic gauge, and he can do that electronically. He is very willing to do that, but what he has requested is that we make periodic comparisons on calm days, no wind, no rain events, that we compare those readings multiple weeks before he makes the adjustment. We want to make sure that we're not looking at one particular thing. There are pressure differences over the length of the lake. Are they ever significant? The The weather people say yes. I can't imagine they're that significant, but there are differences based on barometric pressure. So our plan going forward for the readings, the sensors at the, or sensor at the dam is to make multiple readings over the next few weeks. I will do that. I'm up here periodically, and I'll read the staff gauge at the same time. I don't think we need to read the bubble gauge at the same time because the bubble gauge and the staff gauge read the same. Also, we installed the staff gauge at Birch Point on September 1st, and that's a little more inaccurate, I would say. Basically, we're showing a significant difference in the water, the gauge reading of about 4.5 inches between the staff gauge based on the survey and the electronic gauge. Here again, Cal said, we don't want to make an adjustment immediately. We need to read that multiple times. I agreed that I'll check that over the next few weeks, compare the two readings, and then he'll decide, and we'll talk about it in December, I'm sure, but he'll make a decision how much to adjust based on multiple readings rather than just one. So I think the good news, he's updated the electronics in these control boxes. They have batteries. We can all, it's communicated so we can all look at it electronically. Hopefully over the next couple of months, we'll get the sensors calibrated as accurately as he thinks is possible.
Thank you. Just as an aside, you may notice that the Narrows wasn't mentioned in Rick's last report. The Narrows was calibrated. The staff gauge at the sensor and the sensor reading are in very high compliance, and that one we checked off the list. We got that one calibrated, so we're really confident of how the Narrows sensor is reading on the report that you say. The other thing I wanted to point out, a 1.43 inches, almost an inch and a half, reading low at the dam. So the sensor and doesn't really fit in what we're looking at exactly. So I'm glad that Cal said, let's keep looking at it. But our variance from the judge is only 2 inches. And to have a sensor being off right there by an inch and a half is a very significant difference. Physically, it's not possible because the sensor's, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 feet up from the dam. And as you open the dam and let some water out, the water is curving down just ever so slightly. And so, if anything, it should be reading a little bit higher versus a little lower. Physically, it can't be reading lower and be accurate. Now, the other thing that comes into my mind is how accurate are our sensors? How accurate can we be when we're physically reading a staff gauge? So there's, little bits of variability in what we're doing per se. We're being as accurate as we possibly can by calibrating the sensors. We're taking the next step. It all started with survey work. The surveys were done to make sure that these staff gauges and these reference points are accurate survey-wise. Interestingly enough, the surveys are being done now with very high-tech satellite imagery and response. It's much more technical and accurate than anything you can do with a phone app. Still, when you get the report from the survey crew, their confidence is plus or minus a 1/4 inch. So they're putting us within a 1/2 inch, which is a 1/4 of what we deal with.
Yeah.
So, we can be accurate to a certain point, but that's as close as we're going to get. So we're ratcheting up our accuracy, we're doing our calibrations, we're doing our surveys. and we're going after this hook and tongs. Cal Killen is the person that has developed the software and hardware for the sensors on Lake Leelanau. He initiated his business in doing this as a retiree on Glen Lake. He and his cohorts are basically retired engineers that are having fun doing the stuff they always love to do through their life, and he's upgrading the hardware, he's upgrading the software, he's compliant, it can't be hacked, and it just, we're getting an awful lot for what we're spending. We spend a total of $2,000 a year, 1,000 in 2 different chunks, and I can't imagine that it's even partially paying for what we're getting. It's a really good deal. So anyway, that's Cal Killen. I have a lot of respect for Cal and his expertise as the engineer, president, and chief cook and bottle washer for the company that did our sensors.
Steve, one more comment about the accuracy of the surveys. A few years ago, 5, 6, 7 years ago, the number of satellites used to triangulate the actual height of a staff gauge was 3, 4, or 5. Today they can use 9 to 16 satellites. The accuracy is about 4 times as good as it was less than a decade ago. So the accuracy is very good.
Excellent, excellent report. Thanks, Rick. Any questions of Rick?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much. Conduit leak update. Jerry, can you come up and kind of run us through? This is something that popped up kind of between meetings, and Jerry was able to tackle it. So go ahead, Jerry.
Regarding the hydraulics?
The
Conduit.
the water leak in the conduit.
Okay, conduit. Conduit comes in over the top, and the LB's junction, so-called box, before it drops into the control room, the computer board, whatnot, laid flat. There's no nipple on it at all. It's right on the surface, and in that corner, the roof is 2 different. That's where the water sits. Okay, because of the angle of the roof. We had an injection done by John Hackbar, who did our tunnel work years ago. He used to work for Elmer's, now he has his own company, but he injected in around the conduit on the inside before the rain event, surprisingly, and last week, and it works. So it's keeping the water out right now, but the source of the problem needs to be addressed, where the tube go into the roof, come through the inside. It's right in that corner where the water sits. There's a bad
Gotcha.
So then that we're good there with the computer and the controls are safe.
Excellent, excellent.
That's all there is to that.
Yeah, appreciate it. That was, you knew the right person to call and got it done, and we appreciate that. And having the computer work accurately is important, so
Yes, it is.
Thank-
It's much cheaper this way, so.
thank you much.
You need to get in, going into the hydraulics right now.
That's the next topic. Potential purchase of hydraulic cylinder. And I think that covers any questions for Jerry on the conduit leak.
And it'll be fine until we're next inspected, do you think?
To do something with that.
More permanently?
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
roof issue.
But we'll wait to see what the, yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole nother topic. Thanks, Jerry. I think we're good. The analysis from risk management with regard to the walkway, we had 2 issues that we've been carrying forward over the last 2 years. The walkway repair, basically replacing the wooden pieces on the walkway, and the roof of the control room has a step. It's basically a flat roof, but with a step. There are 2 levels, and in that level that's down, there's a pocket where the water sits, and repair of that, fix of that has been on our agenda, and we're carrying that through. Those were going into the year, and we've been looking at them right along with a lot of other issues, and we're kind of inching our way toward that. Once we get the walkway under our belt, the roof is the next thing as far as to do. Other than hydraulics, we have some money in the budget for hydraulics. We asked for it for next year, and that gets us to our last topic today. Potential purchase of replacement hydraulic cylinder.
Yeah, and I had requested this be put on the agenda. Mr. Pope had pointed out to me that we have 2 hydraulic cylinders that actually operate the dam in the control room, and they've exceeded their expected normal lifetime without rebuilds. And I think just the events of the past storm indicates that it's really important to have enough redundancy that we don't get stuck with an inoperable cylinder. There's still ways, I know Jerry can adjust it manually if necessary, but we're much better off if we have cylinders that are operating within their expected life and properly. So in talking with Mr. Popa, that the plan would be to purchase a new replacement, install that at the appropriate time, take the one that was taken out and have that rebuilt, new seals, repair it up to as close to new condition as possible, and then install that, have the second one rebuilt, and then we'd have a rebuilt
Spare.
hydraulic cylinder that, should something happen to one of the other ones, we could install it right away. So I guess what I'm asking is that we get, have Jerry get a price for purchasing a replacement cylinder so we can start this process. It's not an immediate need, but it's something that should be addressed because we don't want the dam to fall into disrepair, and we have to be prepared for whatever conditions, we come into.
Further comments on this?
It's like an insurance policy. We should have a spare cylinder available all the time. It's from a technical standpoint, you don't want to try to operate the dam manually, particularly during a weather event. So it'd be one more positive to control the water level accurately if something went wrong with the current cylinder.
I agree. One thing that we've been talking about over time, and we did put money into next year's budget, it's with regard to hydraulics. This cylinder would fit into that nicely. There is also the rest of the hydraulic system that we're considering, and the seals that go along with the pumps for that. It's a redundant system. We have 2 cylinders, massive hydraulic cylinders, and 2 pumps. We can run the dam with 1 pump and 1 cylinder. So it's a redundant system. At any rate, going beyond redundancy, we need to think about the life expectancy of seals, which has been brought up to me. We have a person, again, we have a lot of really highly qualified retired persons on the lake and other people on the lake. But there is a person on the lake that his expertise is hydraulics, and he's familiar with these systems. And he's offered his expertise. We could meet with him, just as a throw out a thought, have him meet around one of the office phones, say me, Jerry, that person, and having the company that made our system on the phone while we're talking, to get our hands around the potential replacement cycle and how we would go about that to replace replace seals for our system. It's just a thought, and then I could just move forward and have that meeting. I'd like to take advantage of this person's generosity as soon as I can, if that makes sense. I'll put that on my to-do list. I don't have anything else going on. So, with regard to the cylinder, I think we could direct Jerry to get a price for us.
I have to go beyond that, because we have to look at the system or setup with that, the rams and cylinders to, there's a fail, hydraulic hoses, system itself,
Well,
that gate would go down and have to go flat out to stop at a certain point.
I think, yeah. Yeah, I think when you and I meet, when you and I meet with the guy, what's his name again?
John Colton's.
When you and I meet with him,
John is the, he's worked worldwide building hydraulic systems the size of a semi. I've seen everything that's done, we've been down, we've bought, and he's willing to put in the time and effort to help us acquire and do what we need to do. Because at this point in time, we have no way to bring that gate back up.
Well-
Big fall throughs or hydraulic lines low, we don't have a way to bring that thing back up.
right,
So there's more involved than just the cylinder. Or the engine or something, to run the hydraulics, put disconnect.
Right.
So.
yeah, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying, and you and me and Don and the company that built the system will be on the phone, say, in your office, and getting our hands around all of what you just said. In the meantime, getting a price for a cylinder would be like the number one thing that we're asking for. And then next meeting, we'll come back with the results of what we've brainstormed and get a system for replacing seals. Sound good? All right. Are we good on hydraulics at this point?
So,
Inching our way along, okay. Brings us to public comment. This is the 5-minute stretch. If you could keep it to 5 or even less. Well, everything you say, I want to hear for sure, but if you just give us your name and go ahead and let us
My name is
know.
Bruce Leeland. I live on the south end of Lake Leelanau, the very south end, just north of the river. I've been on the lake for the better part of 75 years, I'm almost 80. My family's been on the lake since 1936. So I've watched this ecosystem for many years, very close up. I fished that lake, I fished that river, I hunt that swamp. I think what we're missing here is the fact that the Leelanau drainage system is huge. It starts up south of Cedar Run Road in Grand Traverse County, and it drains a huge area. I think the Cedar River carries about 70% of the drainage that comes into the lake. And Steve, which carries more water, 2-inch or 4-inch pipe?
I'd go with the 4.
We have a problem in 3 places. The mouth of the Cedar River that is silted in, basically because of a weed bed. A lot of silt and sediment comes down the river, hits that weed bed and drops. The Narrows, I think, better than 50 years ago was dredged because it had filled in. And the mouth of the, or the outlet rather, of North Lake into the Carp River is fairly shallow now. Back in '67, I launched a sailboat at Standard Marine that drew not quite 4 feet of water, and I was able to get out that channel, no problem at all. Today, there's navigation problem. Until we address the problem of these restrictions, no matter what you do at the dam, it's going to take much longer to get rid of this high water. And, you know, we had large rain events 50, 60 years ago, and it didn't seem as if the water took that long to get out over the dam. I was gone during this last rain event, but when I got back, the water was within 2 inches at the bottom of my dock. And today, I went out and measured it, it's about 4.5 inches lower. So that's not a whole lot. Better than a week's time. But anyhow, until they address the possibility of dredging the Leland River, not for navigation, but to pull the plug in the drain. You know, if you have a plug in your kitchen drain and it takes forever for the water to go down, it's no different. We've got a plug at the mouth of the Carp River, at the Narrows, and Cedar River. In the village of Cedar, you know, it's got a water problem there. The water that comes down from Grand Traverse County, that whole community has basically got wet feet. And it's like that for weeks. And it raises the groundwater too. You know, all this water held back affects everything. I've got probably 100 feet of unimproved shore, and I'm still losing cedar trees. That's just a fact of life if you live on Lake Leelanau. The wave action washes the soil out from underneath the cedar trees or whatever tree is there, and it'll fall in the lake. And then in wintertime, you have ice. And the ice freezes and expands and thaws and expands, and it winds up pushing your bank back. I've probably lost 6-8 feet of shoreline in the last 65 years. But anyhow, but until they address the issue of shallow water at the Carp River, in the Narrows, and the mouth of the Cedar River, this water cannot get out no matter what you do at the dam in a timely manner.
Thank you.
I heard you. Well, thanks for the insight. Yeah, this gentleman knows as much about the lake as anybody almost, and thanks for coming.
Good morning, Chris Crump again. South Lake Leelanau, just a couple points I wanted to make. This year was different, how the dam was operating, clearly. Understand the court order covers more than just level of the dam. You can't just say we're at 589.2 and then go like this, hit the easy button, it's done. That dam's got to be operated. There's 24 hours in a day. People can't navigate the Carp River, drop it down for 6 hours a night to get the South Lake lower. It's got to, something has to change. This year was different. This year was not operated the same as it has in the past. And to the gentleman's point here, that Cedar River, Victoria Creek, all that drainage is like a big sponge and it holds it. When that dam was kept at 589.2 all summer through the drought, our lake levels on South Lake were 6 inches higher all year. I don't need sensors to tell me that. I can tell that by the level of my dock that's in the same preset levels year after year. So something drastically has to change in operation of the dam. I like the foresight that the board has talked about earlier today around preparing for rain events, but that has to be taken further. South Lake Leelanau has to be looked at in the equation, getting them down, and I know that it's not going to ever be at the 589.2 because of the natural flow of the water and all kinds of different variables that come into play. But the court order says to be measured at the dam, which is fine. It also says that the court order is very specific in protecting the property of all the lakeshore residents. And we're not following that court order at this point. Something drastically has to change in operation of the dam. That dam's got to be lowered at certain points of the day when there's no navigation going on, maybe midnight till 6 in the morning or something along those lines. Continually trying to drop that down to protect the properties on South Lake. But the gentleman that was before me again spoke, and he is correct. Until the dredging happens, we can debate about the levels of navigation of that river, but that court order level is going to make that river impassable. Probably within 10 years, I would imagine. It's going to be a bigger problem. But in the meantime, South Lake needs to be lowered, as it has been last year, the year before, This year it just can't happen again. You cannot have that lake running 6 inches above, have a rain event, whether it's a historic one or not, raise that level and wash all that sediment into the lake again. So I appreciate it, and I ask you respectfully to please put a plan together, be proactive, to try to do more to lower the levels on South Lake. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is John Popa, and I live on the South Lake. I'm going to comment on some of the comments. Steve and I was on the authority when we built this dam, and we both have filing cabinets full of stuff. That dam was designed for a 200-year flood. And when it was designed for that, it said the gate will be flat open and all the boards out. And it's supposed to pass 1,200 cubic feet a second or something. So the boards would have to be out during this 200-year flood. And during that 200-year flood, the lake would rise 1 foot. So the lake higher at 1 foot, the dam down, that's how much was calculated for going over that dam. So these 5 inches and 8-inch events that we have every 5 to 10 years, we're going to have to live with that. These aren't major 100-year events. When FEMA came through, they did the lake study, and they said the lake would rise 1 foot during a 100-year event. They didn't care about the dam. That just meant during a 100-year event, we're going to get a foot of water in that lake. So anyway, that dam is going to operate the way it is. At the time we did that, we did a study whether Leland River would hold it back, and it turned out with that much water that all that sand is going to wash into the holes and over the dam anyway at that so many feet per second. The Narrows does not restrict anything. I've got a PowerPoint presentation on that. I've got drawings of the bridge. The cross section of water going through there is 5 times the cross section that would go over the dam, so it's not holding it. We did dredge it years ago, but that was in front of somebody's boathouses and from the bridge the other direction to the north. And that was mainly for boat traffic, but it didn't do anything. It's about 1/8 of a mile across there when we dredged that time, and it has nothing to do with the flow. I'm very passionate about controlling the lake level too, as you know. The Lake Association purchased these sensors so that we'd have a better, they're only a tool, we'd have a better tool of watching these. And they are a tool. I also went around and set these stakes at various locations, and one was by Seltzer Park. So I went around for a year. I measured the one there, measured the one at the Narrows, measured at the dam, and measured at the South Lake. That lake is essentially flat. Sometimes the South Lake is lower. One time, Seltzer was lower than it was at the Narrows, and it's just atmospheric Coriolis effect. I don't know what it is, but when something's 18 miles long, you're going to get a little fluctuation of a couple inches here and there, just like you would at the bilge or the bottom of a ship. But that lake is essentially flat. During all these events, that Narrows doesn't hold anything back either. Now, sensors might be wrong, but it's essentially flat. Those pistons that you talked about, and there's a comment made by the engineer. When those pistons are completely down and the gate is open, one piston cannot raise it. Can operate under one piston, and you can isolate stuff. But with the gate fully down and a flow going over it, you couldn't lift it up with one piston. And that engineer, what his name was, he told us that too. And
Thomas
you can't
Perhoda.
crank that thing up with that crank we got. that crank was only made to put it in a safety position. And I asked Machine Engineering, it's only got a 1-inch shaft on it. And that thing cannot, even, you could put all the cheater bars you want, but it would rip that thing right out of the threads to try lifting that gate up. So you gotta be careful saying you can manually operate it. And I mentioned under the bridge. I think you're on the right track.
Thank you.
Thanks, John, and thanks for your
And I
help.
looked the name up of that guy, that is the hydraulic guy, and I lost a piece of paper for it.
I think Jer's got him. I think we can do that.
That guy's a good guy. He went through our entire control room. He reviewed those drawings and made some corrections on them when he first did it. And I had him go through the prints, and he gave some, but he also has some real good suggestions on all that stuff. And I'd be happy to contact him if you want me to.
John, a question.
He is a Lake Association member.
I don't know who has authority or responsibility or interest in dredging the Carp River, but did I understand correctly that if one were to change the flow in the river, we could remove a lot of water from South Lake significantly faster?
That's a topic that's a good one to discuss, but this is public comment.
I'm sorry.
That's a great question, and it's a great topic, and now that the whole concept of hydraulic study has been tossed in our lap, we've bumped into it a little bit, but I think the authority will bring it up next meeting for sure, and maybe move down that road of a hydraulic study, hydrologic study, I'm sorry.
There is talk about doing some dredging on that Leland River and stuff, but mainly that was for boat traffic. The first couple hundred feet, they weren't interested in lowering the lake level and all that stuff. It's wide enough that when the water goes up, it's gonna take this flow and stuff.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
Anyone else?
Good morning. I'm Andrew Scott. I'm a local real estate agent. I don't own property or anything on either North or South Lake Leelanau, but I am representing a client who's considering purchasing on South Lake Leelanau. So I got an assignment to come in and understand what has taken place regarding this latest event. And, I came in pretty ignorant of the dam authority's role and the history, certainly not as educated as previous public commenters. However, I'm coming, while I know a lot more, I still don't know exactly if I'm going to be able to complete my assignment for my client to understand what exactly happened, why it happened, and if we accept the premise offered by a previous commenter that something has changed in how the dam operates, what exactly has that been? So, anyway, I hope I'll be able to complete my assignment at some point and be able to thoroughly understand exactly the problem and what, if anything, has changed. Because some of what I've heard in public comments and from the dam operator, from Jerry, that this doesn't seem to have been a once-in-a-lifetime event. He stated that he had a similar one where he had to go out, or I think it was 2000, he said. So that's not, and I guess I'm assuming that earlier event did not have the same repercussions that this one has had. I quickly looked at what I think is that court order from 1978 that gives that buffer of the 2-inch buffer. And so the dam operator himself hasn't changed, the court order hasn't changed. And so I'm trying to discern what exactly has changed. It sounded a little bit like the dam authority, the group here, did change direction to the dam operator in terms of where to be within that range offered by the court order from 0 to 2. And then there was some discussion about after passing through, you were going to settle in at a midpoint. And so that's, I know you're not answering questions from public comment, I know how it works, but that's just something that I'm trying to come away and complete my assignment for a client who's getting ready to make a significant investment in waterfront property in South Lake Leland. And part of that due diligence is to understand exactly what has taken place and what, if anything, can be done to prevent it in the future. And so I've learned a lot, but I don't know that I have the answers to those questions as of yet. So that's feedback to the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello,
Greetings.
I'm Jody Bush, but my previous name is Kiesel, so I am a lifelong resident, many generations in Leelanau County.
You're on my to-call list.
So I've never really been to one of these board meetings, but it's become more of an interest to me as my mom is a resident of Lake Leelanau on the south end and has been for 24 years. I've played on Lake Leelanau at the Copas. I've fished on Lake Leelanau. I've done a lot on Lake Leelanau. And in the past 3 years, there has been significant high water. A couple years ago, I was coming off the boat on Bingham Landing, and the water was high on the dock on Bingham Landing, and I stepped off, and my leg went one way, and I went the other way. So thankfully, no injuries were happened, but that's just a minor part of when these lake levels are high. Not only do we need to consider some of the homes, but we also need to consider people being on their docks, public accesses, and things like that. So also too, one of the things that I would like to what I heard today was a lot about the marina and the boats going in and out of the river and the navigation of that in the marina and the navigation of the boats and the level there. Great, that's wonderful. I have no disrespect for those people and the marina owner of his boats being able to navigate them in and out. However, you have homes on Lake Leelanau that are worth a lot of money. Of course, they've gone up higher in value, but also to insurance does not cover, 90% of the time is not covered when water is coming in from the outside into a home. So if these people's homes are being damaged because of the water in the lake and the rise of that, insurance generally will not cover that. So that's out of their expense and their pocket. They're also investing money into their shorelines and things like that, so they're losing money that way. So granted, I don't disrespect that marina owner and how he is not able to navigate his boats or any disrespect to the owners on the river, but these are people that have had homes for a long, long time, and people not to be able to navigate their boats, I think, is a minor issue. Just my personal opinion. And I'm not sure if I misunderstand Jerry. I don't know him personally. I appreciate his work that he does and what he does and the safety of it. However, my husband and I did take our grandkids into Leland, and we went on the river, and we went on the walkway there in the dam, which we do appreciate and be able to see that. One of the things I did notice the day after that water, we had all that rain. My mom was told that the dam had been wide open to let water out. Well, when I went to the edge of the water, I looked, and the one side of the dam had not been open. The boards had not been lifted. And that was on September 6th at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the day after we got all that rain. So I'm a little concerned as to why those boards were not immediately opened for emergency purposes. Also too, so I'm not sure if I misunderstood him, and I do apologize if I did. I also would like to know that Jerry is checking the dam levels, but also is he checking the levels at the Narrows also? Is he as consistent going to the Narrows, checking that, then going down, or I'm sorry, the dam, then going to the Narrows? how often is he going to the Narrows to check those lake levels down there as well? The dam is, I appreciate the respect that he does and takes care of that, but I also would like to know, is he checking that on a daily basis? Is he contacting people on the south end of Lake Leelanau, seeing what their levels are like? Who's his contact on the south end to talk to them? Also too, dredging the river, I know that was mentioned earlier about in Leland, that for the marina, the ships that go out, or the boats that go out of the marina, we dredged that a few years ago, a lot of money put into that. Maybe we need to consider again, I don't know if that's, but again, like somebody had mentioned, maybe we need to dredge the Leland River, if that's a concern. Also, I'd like to know how soon you are lowering the lake level and opening that dam to lower some of the lakes. You're talking about going to the lower end of the court order. When is that going to be done? Is that today? Is that tomorrow? Also, I'd like to thank you for getting new procedures. You had mentioned, and I really appreciate that, you had mentioned a couple of times, you have to get this in place. When is our date? What is our time? I think ASAP is a very broad word to say. And I've learned that in a lot of meetings I've been in, a lot of people say, well, ASAP. Well, your ASAP and my ASAP might be completely different. So I think, respectfully, I appreciate you bringing that up. We need a date and a time when we're going to get our policies and procedures in place. So that's all. And thank you for all your work. I really appreciate it as a lifelong resident of the hard work that you do.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, hearing none, I'd go to commissioner comments. Seeing none, hearing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.